North Planning Committee. For those in the room, we're just trying to get that screen ready. So hopefully by the time the meeting starts properly, you'll have both screens to watch.
Yeah.
But I'll just do the housekeeping first.
Well,
so I'm Councillor Cathy Pearce, Chair of the committee, and to my right is Councillor Matt Martin, Vice
Why
Chair.
haven't I got any pictures?
Housekeeping, we're not expecting a fire drill today, so if the alarm goes off, it's the real thing. Just head out through the double doors back into reception and out into King Square. There are also toilets in reception should you need them, and there is water on your right. Please help yourself if you would like any. So this meeting is a hybrid meeting, and that means that the committee members are present in Bridgewater House, and the meeting is also available online via Teams. Please note that the meeting is being recorded. And can I remind all those in the room to turn your mobile phones off or to silent? And can those joining us online please turn off your cameras and microphones so that the meeting isn't disturbed? I'll now introduce those taking part in the committee today. To my left are officers from our legal and democratic team. And I'll just take this opportunity to welcome Lee Wilmot to our committee. He will be our Democratic Services Officer from now, and Josh is here today just to get him started to show him the road. So welcome Lee, and welcome back Josh. And to my right are the planning officers who will present the applications. And on the wings of the table are the councillors who will debate and decide the applications. The format will be as per the published agenda, and a copy of the officer reports can be found on the council website. Each application will be taken in turn. Officers will outline each application, followed by public speaking time. Only members of the public who have registered to speak can make representation. Councillors around the table will then debate and decide on each application. During the debate, there will be a proposer and a seconder for a resolution. Members will vote on the proposal, and only members who have been present throughout the application will be able to vote. And the voting options are for, against, abstain or defer. Votes will be counted and the result announced. So that takes us into the main agenda for the afternoon. And first of all, I have to ask for apologies for absence, but looking around, we're all here and there are no apologies. So that's good. Agenda item number 2 on pages 13 of your report are minutes from the previous meeting. I have 2 items on here for accuracy and clarity. First of all, I noticed on page 15 of the report, it's item 44, and that was the Tower House application. Bullet point number 4, there is no E in Bridgewater, so we're a bit funny about it, about that here. So if that could be put right, that would be great. And the other thing I picked up, I don't know if anybody else did, I think I just misunderstood the intention, but on page 17, the resolution for the Tower House is recorded as in favour, unanimous. And I took that to mean it was in favour of the application when the actual resolution was to defer. But I understand there's to be a unified way of recording decisions. In favour is to be the way that the vote went, but I think we need a bit more clarity. So I would ask that that's changed to in favour of deferral, just to make it absolutely clear that it was different from the officer's recommendation. If there's no other items, can we agree everyone in favour of those minutes with those? Yeah, I think that's unanimous.
Did you have that?
Is it?
I wasn't at the meeting.
Oh, right, yeah, that's unanimous for all the. Sure. So next we go to declarations of interest. Can our legal officer, and just to explain why councillors we need to make declarations of interest.
Thank you. Yes, there is a critical distinction when you consider declarations of interest. And the specific distinction is that where members have, shall we say, specific interest, financial or family interest within a particular matter, then they are regarded as not being able to participate in the meeting or indeed, shall I say, vote in the meeting. In those cases, they must declare the predetermination interest. They've determined basically to leave the committee room whilst the matter's under consideration. In contrast to that, there are other interests that can be declared. These are interests where there's a predisposition that's considered relevant. That is where some members are members of another public body, where they don't have a personal interest as such, but just a public interest, which is quite straightforward. In such cases, they can still remain in the committee and participate in the debate and also vote, provided they declare their interest from the So you will hear some members from time to time declare an interest and remain in the meeting, but that's not in the case where they have a mere predisposition and still have an open mind. However, if they declare a personal interest or a pecuniary interest, then they can't participate in the debate. They must declare an interest and leave the committee room at that stage. So that's a critical decision that all members have in mind at all times. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So, any declarations of interest? Councillor Hendry.
Chair. I'm on the Axbridge Drainage Board, but I've had no conversation with any person about any case. Moving on from that, planning application Oxford Street, Burnham-on-Sea, page 19 to 44. I'm Burnham-on-Sea South. This is Burnham-on-Sea North, I believe. One joins the other, but I've had no conversation with anybody, and I don't know anybody involved in this whatsoever. Absolutely nothing. Good.
Thank you. Councillor Fillmore.
Yeah, I'm also a member of Axbridge Drainage Board, but taking no part in any of their deliberations.
Thank you. Councillor Slocum.
Thank you, Chairman. I belong to the Bridgewater Town Council regarding agenda item 7, but I've taken no part in any discussions.
Thank you. I too need to declare an interest in agenda item 7 as also a member of Bridgewater Town Council, but I've not taken part in any discussion. Councillor Ferguson.
May I declare an interest in agenda item number 6? It's in my patch in my division, but I've taken part in no conversations regarding the application.
Thank you. That's Councillor Helm. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
As Councillor Ferguson, item number 6 is in our area. I'm a member of Axbridge Town Council. The Axbridge Town Council has objected to this application, but I didn't take part in the discussions, and I'm of an open mind.
Thank you. Councillor Smedley.
Member of Bridgewater Town Council.
Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Chair. I am a ward member for Burnham North, so I have an interest in item 5, passing interest, but I haven't had any discussions with anybody, so.
Thank you. Thank you, councillors. We now go on to public question time. There are members of the public that, oh, sorry, Councillor Bruce.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's. Yeah, sorry, Carrot Drainage Board, I think it's item 7. I don't think there were any comments from the Drainage Board, but haven't been involved in any discussions with them. Thank you.
Thank you. That's everybody. Agenda item 4 is public question time. Members of the public have registered to speak, and I will ask you to come to the table when we are considering each application. We now go on to the first of our applications, agenda item 5 on pages 19 to 44, and that is for 19 Oxford Street, Burnham-on-Sea. I think Shanta, you'll take this one.
Thank you, Chair. This application number 11 of the 23 of the 00124 is a full application for the erection of a 70-bed care home on site of an existing care home, including additional access to
to the north of the site. The site is located 19 Oxford Street. The application is brought to committee today because it is a major application and there's an objection from the town council and the officer's recommendation is to grant consent. The main considerations with this application include principle of development, the design of visual amenity and the impact on the character of the area, residential amenity and highway safety. Now the site is located, as you can see, within the centre of Burnham-on-Sea, the built up predominantly residential area, with the Oxford Street running north-south along the western boundary and Priory Gardens along the northern boundary. Now the site is surrounded by a variety of differing architectural styles and ages of properties, ranging from a more dense populated red terrace properties to the west, variety of two-storey and single-storey houses and bungalows of later build to the north and to the east, and to the south there's a couple of more recently constructed dwellings. The existing care home comprises of a collection of buildings. This is the footprint of the existing care home, and as you can see in the aerial, we've got the chapel building on the left-hand side, which is adjacent to Oxford Street. Then there is a link between this building and a three-storey Victorian red brick building along to the east. And then to the north of the site, there are quite a number of two-storey and single-storey sheds and additional buildings. Now, deemed consent was granted November last year for the demolition of these buildings, which includes the entirety of the buildings on the site. In terms of existing and proposed, as you can see, the footprint on the left is the footprint of the existing building, and the proposed building on the right would form its replacement. The proposal, as I said, was to build, or is to build, a 70-bed purpose-built care home to replace the existing building. The proposed 2- and 3-storey building would be formed of multiple sections, with 2-storey section along the northern side of the site, 3-storey sections along the south. In a moment, we'll have a look at the elevations and it'll become clearer. And the buildings would comprise of a number of buildings joined together to form a varied aesthetic appearance with differing roof heights and differing materials with differing architectural features. Now, while I've got this layout, I can explain the vehicle access into the site. There is an existing vehicle access along Oxford Street into the existing care home, which also serves the 2 dwellings to the south. And this area is currently all hard surfaced. This proposal seeks to provide 17 car parking spaces at the rear and 2 staff car parking spaces. And then at the north, the proposal seeks to provide a new vehicle access of Priory Gardens. This would provide access to 11 further staff car parking spaces. Just going to run through the floor plans. These are very difficult for you to read, but as you can see, the regular sort of rectangles are bedrooms. The central 2 areas that are shown in white are 2 courtyards. What we have to the left-hand side down here is a cafe, reception and office. Lounges and dining rooms in the middle structure, and with a nurse's space over here. And then the second floor would be similar to some degree. To the left, we've got an activity space. Here is the activity space and a store here. Lounge and dining rooms in the middle of the building, and nurse's room over to the right here. and the third floor. As you can see, this is the 3-story element, which is centered or directed towards the southern side of the building. And we've got a lounge dining room up here, bathroom, nurse's space, plant room in the middle, activity space below. We've got kitchen on this side, kitchen, laundry and staff room. Now, this is the existing building. Unfortunately, it's very sketchy in terms of the amount of detail that it shows. But this is the southern elevation. This shows the chapel to the left, a more modern link between the chapel and the 3-story Victorian brick building. We'll have a look at some photographs in a minute. And at the bottom is the opposite elevation, which faces onto Priory Gardens. Clearly, these two are the end elevations. These are the proposed elevations, indicating, as I said, varied roof heights, varied faces, so that it doesn't look like one big block of a building. This elevation is the elevation facing eastwards. The bottom elevation is facing north, which is Priory Gardens. And there you can see the lower 2-story element, which fronts Priory Gardens, and the taller 3-story rear. These are the other elevations. This elevation faces, sorry, I got that one wrong. That elevation does face the east. The bottom one faces the south. I'll read that from here. This elevation faces Oxford Street, and the bottom elevation faces into the site itself. This is a view taken from Oxford Street, looking at the western elevation of the existing chapel building. And it does show part of the existing access into the site and the Victorian building beyond. Now we have directly into the vehicle access into the site, which you can see is currently hard surfaced. This also leads to the 2 dwellings, which is to the south of this application site. And that is one of the 2 dwellings that is relatively recently constructed. This is spanning back towards the corner of Priory Gardens and Oxford Street and the end of the chapel building. And this is within Priory Gardens, looking at the back of the site. This just shows some of the varied heights and structures that are part of the existing care home. That's another photograph. Ooh, I go too quick for it. That's another one. As you can see, the differing roof heights and structures, and another one. And then that one shows the site in relation to one of the existing bungalows to the east of the site. This is from within the site. This is the link between the chapel, which is to the side here, and the Victorian building. This is the chapel itself. To the side is the Victorian building. So in terms of the main issues of the application, the site, the main issues relate to the principle of the proposal, and taking into consideration the fallback position of the deemed demolition consent. It also, the main issues also include the consideration of the character and appearance of the area, residential amenity, and highway safety. Now, in terms of the principle of the application, the site lies within the Burnham-on-Sea settlement boundary. The building is not listed, it's not in a conservation area, and furthermore, deemed demolition consent has already been granted. And so in terms of a fallback position, the buildings could be demolished with no further consents. The policies within the local plan support development opportunities within identified settlement boundaries, and include the reuse of previously developed land and buildings and employment proposals. And particularly policy D7 supports proposals for specialist accommodation and seeks to resist the loss of existing care homes and specialist accommodation. The existing use of the site as a care home has been closed for some time. I think it was closed in November 2022. And this proposal seeks to provide a replacement purpose-built care home which would function more effectively and efficiently. The applicant has undertaken feasibility studies for the conversion of the existing premises, but have established a number of issues, and they are listed on paragraph 11.6 of the report. And those issues include inadequate corridor widths, changes in level across floors, disproportionately high ceilings in certain areas, disproportionately low ceilings in other areas, poor natural light, poor communal spaces, disjointed circulation, configuration of rooms makes appropriate staffing difficult, and appropriate fire strategy is difficult to maintain. Therefore, the applicants consider that the only option is to improve the standard of care and maintain bedroom numbers locally is to demolish the existing facility and to construct a new care home. To conclude, in terms of the principle, the site is within the settlement boundary and well linked in terms of accessibility. The building is not listed, not in the conservation area. Furthermore, deemed demolition consent has already been granted, and therefore the principle of the redevelopment of the site is acceptable and compliant with policies of the local plan. In terms of the character and appearance of the layout, the proposed care home would be on site with the existing care home. And while there are some trees protected by a tree preservation order, these are to the south of the site and beyond the south site boundary. These would not be impacted upon by the proposed development. Some of the existing buildings do contribute considerably to the character of the area. However, as I have said over and over, really, none of the buildings are listed or within a conservation area. While it would be ideal to retain the older buildings, some of the other buildings on the site add no aesthetic benefit to the area. And while the views of the former conservation officer were to find a way to retain the buildings, the applicants have found that due to the historic nature of the buildings and the piecemeal evolution, the form, the spaces and proportions are not conducive for a modern care home facility. As there is no heritage status attached to the buildings, their loss cannot be resisted. In terms of the proposed scheme, the care home would be formed with a new collection of buildings which respond to the site in a similar way to the existing buildings, but with bespoke features which are in the applicant's view fit for purpose. The buildings would comprise of a series of 4 elements with traditional simple form with pitched roofs, gable ends and differing materials which would reflect existing materials in the area, as well as breaking up the mass of the building. And as such, in terms of the impact on the character of the area and the design, the proposed development would accord with policy. In terms of residential amenity, the existing care home, as you can see with the footprint on the left-hand side, is relatively close to the eastern boundary and the neighbouring bungalows there to the east. And the existing care home also includes a number of windows in that elevation. The proposed care home would be sited back from the boundary, as you can see in the other layout plan. And while there are a number of windows at 2nd and 3rd floor level, which include the landing, a staff room and a bedroom that could potentially cause overlooking, the other windows would not cause any harm in terms of overlooking. But it's why I've recommended a condition is attached to the consent if granted to ensure that the 1st and 2nd floor windows of those that would cause overlooking are either obscure glazed completely or obscure glazed up to a level of 1.7 metres above the internal floor level, which is considered an adequate height in order to protect the privacy of the neighbouring properties. In terms of any potential visual domination or loss of light, due to the height of the proposed building, there would be no undue adverse impact. In terms of highway safety, the proposal seeks to utilise the existing access into the site, which has already been improved with the consent of the two houses to the south. The proposal also includes a new access to the north of Priory Gardens, leading to staff car parking. Now, the Highways Authority have raised no objection to the application, and given that the proposal is on a like-for-like basis, that the overall numbers of bedrooms being provided are similar, the use of the access would not cause any material additional traffic movements. And given the benefit of a new separate staff parking area, the proposal is not considered to be detrimental to highway safety. Now, to summarise, the principle of a care home on the site of the existing care home within the settlement boundary is acceptable. The development would have no adverse impact on the character of the area, residential amenity, highway safety, ecology, flood risk, or heritage assets. And therefore, the recommendation is to grant consent. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for that. We have two speakers on this item, and I'd first like to invite Charlie James, lead architect, to the front table there, please. You'll have 3 minutes. Yes, you just press this. Just let us know when you're ready to start, and we'll set the timer.
Yeah, good to go. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Charlie James. I'm the lead architect on the scheme, and I'm going to reiterate some of the points that have been made by the case officer, but hopefully include some other things. So our client, Country Court Care Group, is one of the fastest growing care home operators and is renowned for being a family-run organisation with an outstanding reputation, which is articulated through their ethos, our family caring for yours. The company's principal business is providing high quality accommodation across the care spectrum, including residential care and nursing through to dementia care and nursing dementia. Country Court Care took over the running of Priory Court back in 2015. However, it became quickly apparent that simply upgrading the existing bedrooms and fit out would not fundamentally fix the issues surrounding the building, some of which have been iterated. Things like inadequate corridor widths and changes in levels, and this restricts movement of both staff and residents around the building. Disjointed and confusing circulation routes. This is particularly an issue for dementia residents. Disproportionately high ceilings and windows, which lead to make that some rooms feel oppressive instead of homely. Poor natural light, poor and small communal spaces. But one of the major issues is in relation to staffing. With the configuration and the requirements of CQC, this resulted in high staff to resident ratios, which compounded with some of the other issues, basically means the running of the care home as it exists is ultimately unviable. And as a result, the home was closed in 2022. So whilst the loss of the existing buildings on site is regrettable, the only option available to be able to maintain and operate a care home on this site is to demolish the existing, which is unsuitable and no longer fit for purpose, and a new build facility which will provide the highest quality for care of its occupants for years to come. In terms of the design, as with all Country Court Care buildings, focuses on providing high quality bedroom and recreational spaces for the residents, with generous bedrooms, all of which will have an ensuite shower facility, light and open communal lounge and dining areas, and added value spaces, which include activity spaces for hobbies, hair salon, cinema, cafe area, which has been mentioned. And all of this helps to foster the community and also foster quality time on family visits. Architecturally, we've talked a little bit about the simple forms and those kind of the gable roofs and the various materials, and hopefully that will all help to cement the building into its context. I won't go into too much more, but essentially the proposals represent an opportunity to provide a first-class community facility for Burnham and the surrounding areas, and is presented in a contemporary form which both complements and enhances its surroundings. 1 second.
Well done, thank you. I'd now like to ask John Sadler, engagement, to come to the table, please. Yeah, 3 minutes. Just let us know when you're ready to start and we'll set the timer.
Good afternoon. Members of the committee, this afternoon you're determining an application which has an officer recommendation for approval following a positive pre-application process and determination period. The application site comprises previously developed brownfield land located within Burnham-on-Sea settlement boundary, which used to operate as the Priory Court care home. Sadly, however, as Charlie's touched upon today and is well documented within the application submission, the previous care home was forced to shut as the existing buildings on site are, despite numerous attempts over the years trying to alter and adapt them as much as possible, incapable of providing the specification, layout and facilities required to meet the modern standards required of a care home. It's also worth noting that the site benefits from this deemed consent by the council for the comprehensive demolition of all buildings without requiring anything in its place, and this demolition could be undertaken at any time in the next 5 years. With the above in mind, a new 70-bed care home facility of the highest standard is proposed with regards to design, environmental performance, quality and functionality that will provide much needed care home accommodation back to Burnham-on-Sea's community. Paragraph 125 of the NPPF is clear that councils should give substantial weight to the value of using suitable brownfield land within settlements for homes and other identified needs, proposals for which should be approved unless substantial harm would be caused. Most statutory consultees have not objected to the proposals, bar the council's conservation officer, who notes the loss of some of the existing buildings on site is regrettable. However, as previously mentioned, deemed consent has already been granted for the demolition of all existing buildings on site without replacement, and none of the buildings are locally listed, nor is the site located in the conservation area. I also note the town council objected to the proposals as they considered the parking provision to be insufficient. However, the previous care home, which was of similar size to that which is proposed, had approximately 10 informal car parking spaces associated with it, and no parking issue was ever experienced. This application proposes almost 3 times that number of parking spaces, which meets the council's parking standards, and highways have no objection. Therefore, in accordance with the NPPF and as reflected by the planning officer's recommendation, planning permission should be granted for the proposals as no substantial harm would be caused. In any case, the proposals represent a huge opportunity to provide a best-in-class care home facility for the local community that will serve Burnham-on-Sea's immediate and wider catchment both now and well into the future, which will also bring a significant local employment benefit. On this basis, I respectfully ask the committee to follow the officer's clear recommendation and approve the application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to councillors for questions or comments. Councillor Hendry.
No, sorry, I don't think I should be in here. I said I had no conversation with anybody about this. I don't know why I said that really, because I'm the chairman of the Burnham and Highbush Planning Committee. And I couldn't interrupt you as all this was going on. I really do apologise about that. I don't know why I said that. But I think I should actually leave the room.
Advice before you do that.
Could you provide clarification of what you just said?
Yeah, I can. I'm the chairman of the Burnham and Highbush Planning Committee when this came before us. I'm really sorry for this. I'm not quite sure why I said what I said. I was the only person in the room who voted for it. All this concern council voted against, I voted for it. I'm so lucky, but I have actually already voted on this. And on that basis, I'm not effectively being this over.
Or you're still approaching this matter with an open mind? No. I think in that case, you must declare and leave the room.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
You do that. Thank you, councillor Hendry. Any other councillor? Councillor Martin.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for that presentation. I was going to talk about parking because I didn't think there was enough either. And looking at, well, listening to our second speaker who mentioned that the previous application had 10 spaces allocated and now we have said almost 30. I can only see 17. And there's a lot of rooms in that building. I don't think 17 would be enough, but can we just clarify that 17/30 question, please?
Yeah, at the rear where the existing access is at the moment of Oxford Street, there will be 17 and 2 staff parking spaces. And then at the north of Priory Gardens, there will be a new vehicle access serving 11 staff spaces.
38.
So,
Yeah.
so it should be an extra 21 spaces on top of the 9 that was existing.
Okay, so,
I counted 9 previously.
so the 9 that existed also included the staff parking spaces, did they?
Yes, there was just 1 space that incorporated 9 spaces.
Oh.
Total people.
Oh,
Well,
good.
existing.
Excellent. Thank you.
That's the Filmer.
I have the slide up that showed a couple of things. One was the building that's currently there, and then the other is those design elevations. Because I must admit, the principle of this, no problem whatsoever. Can't see any issues with it at all. Highways, I think, we might have some concerns about numbers, but to be honest, it's more than what was there before, so I think we're on a very sticky wicket on that. The thing that I find a little bit difficult to get my head around is the design. The layout, actually, the bulk and the massing of the building, no problem whatsoever. But when you see the building that is there currently, and I know we've got the permission to have it knocked down, but for us to state that we're not going to change or deteriorate the character of that area, I'm struggling with slightly. When you see the original building, there is huge amounts of character in that. The Priory, the Victorian building, you've got fenestration, which is very attractive and adds to that area of the town. It's not a hidden away building. As you go along Oxford Street, it is in your face, and you are well aware of that construction. So where I'm struggling slightly, when we talk about this being, I think the phrase was used by the applicant, that best in class, I think it probably is in terms of what's inside the building. I have absolutely no problem with that, and I think that is a improvement of what's there. I'm just really disappointed that we haven't got something more in the design. That I don't want a pastiche of what was there by any means, but there is such character and it's such a prominent site within Oxford Street. I'm driving past that for the next 20 years, I'm looking at thinking, is that really what I voted for? So I'm looking for a little bit of understanding from the officers as to how we've ended up with that design, because it just comes across as something of nothing. Now, maybe there's more in there in terms of materials and fenestration around the windows that I'm not picking up from that level of design, but it just feels to me a completely two-dimensional flat. Such a prominent and such a major building that's going to be there for a very long time and affect the street scene of Burnham for the next 100 years.
Thank you. I mean, I'm certainly no architect. What the applicants have sought to do is to provide a building which is structured, and instead of having one block of a mass of a simple elevation on all 4 sides, they've sought to provide differing heights, different roof lines, with differing sort of setbacks of the building. Certainly to the north, you've got 2-story element, which is facing Priory Gardens, so that it's not so tall and bulky. And then towards the south is a 3-story element. And at the side elevation there, that's what you would see from Oxford Street, which differs in its depth and the height. The agents also suggested, that's why I've shown the colour drawings, although they don't show the details of materials, but they have in their design and access statements suggest that the faces of the building be to incorporate differing materials like clay hanging or red hanging tiles, red tiles and different shades of tiles, and sun cladding and different features. Some of them have different features around the windows. So, I mean, that is what they have sought to do, is provide a building, provide the functional form, but also to break it up with differing roof lines and faces. But clearly everyone has a different view of design, and certainly the existing buildings do have a lot of character. Can't take that away from the site, but we can't actually ensure that they're retained. That's can't do.
Thank you, Shanta.
Councillor Slocum.
Excuse me, councillor Filmer and I have not discussed this in any way at all, but I'm of the same mind. I have to say, and apologies to the architects and designers, but I've seen places, people stay in His Majesty's pleasure, look a lot more exciting than this. And I was really disappointed with the outlook. You know, I guess, nursing home, I mean, this could be, who knows, this could be yours, my home in 10 years, 5 years, who knows? And I have to say that is a very dominant, prominent building that looks like an office block, if you have to say a better word, and it's not visual, it's got no visual content to it. It might be practical inside with all those masses of rooms, but to me, I have to say, I'm not pleased at all by the design, sorry.
Thank you, councillor Slocum. I think that sort of an explanation was given prior to councillor Filmer. But is there anything else you'd wish to as well, other than you've already done? Councillor Murphy.
Thank you. At the end of his talk, the architect said its contemporary form complements its surroundings. I don't think that's true. Opposite that building on the other side is the old, I think is the dwelling room, the dwelling area, the dwelling dormitory, I suppose the living area of the convent that was there, which is still old. In fact, it almost tried to be destroyed by a tree falling on it not so long ago. It's a very big tree that was in the garden that fell over, and they replaced it with very tasteful terracotta tiling on the roofs. Very, very nice. And the end of that building is very interesting. When you go down Jacob Road, that building is an old style building. And I think, I have to tell you that I like what you do. It's very nice. It's very contemporary. It reminds me of a proposal that was put forward for 3 different wooden structure buildings to go in the middle of the Bank Street car park to make a market kind of area. And because they were almost Dutch-like in their construction. I mean, the thing that worries me a little bit, and you're obviously very good at what you do, it's quite a nice layout. I can see that your thoughts of the different roofs are very, very good. And obviously, and I can tell you that my wife, who died 10 years ago, was for a short period of time an occupant on a temporary basis on the front of one of the buildings, and we couldn't even get the wheelchair into the toilet. It was that bad. So obviously, there's a desperate need to change this into a modern, workable building. There's no question about that. What I'm concerned about is I agree with the previous 2 speakers, those buildings that put together great in modern ideas of, looking at its change. But also when you remember, you say that its contemporary form complements its surroundings. Next door on the other side is St. Joseph's Primary School, which is completely an old building. There's a statue in the front put in. It has special lintels that are making it into something that's quite an old and cozy sort of school. That is not a contemporary building. That is an old style building. So you're on a site that on the one side has the one side has the school, and on the other side has the dormitory. I think you've got it slightly wrong. I have to. I love the work that architects do in developing and light and airy things, but I'm really concerned about this, and I think I'd like to hear more from other colleagues before I finally make my mind up.
Councillor Murphy, councillor Grimes.
Thank you, Chairman. I think my fellow councillors have said everything that I've been thinking right from the start, really. But just moving on from that, I know there is planning permission in place now to demolish this building, which isn't an issue for me, but I think it's certainly going to be an issue for the people that live very close, especially the properties that's actually within the curtilage of this building. And I'm wondering what provision is going to be made for trying to protect them, where they park, how they get in and out while this construction's going on. So I think it's not just the design, which I think, I've got to be honest, I think is awful. But as we've said, it's personal opinion. And I think it could be done a lot better, but I'm also concerned about certainly the surrounding area for the people that live there. And I don't think it's very far from where this is going to be knocked down, where the two new properties, and I think it came to us for permission to put the properties in there. And I think at that time, they wanted to put a lot more properties in there. But so I'm concerned about what provisions will be made for this, whether it will be some way petitioned off, so with the dust and the noise and the traffic in and out. But that's my observations on that, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Grimes. Chantal, would you like to respond in any way regarding the sort of access and entry arrangements?
Chair, if it's okay, I'll just give a quick response. In terms of that final point about impacts on existing residents, you'll see condition 12 as recommended is that there would be a construction management plan that would need to be sent to us and agreed, and that's very much aimed at alleviating any of those issues and mitigating any of those. When it comes to design, obviously I'm hearing what's being said, but Councillor Grimes made the valid point that the existing building has demolition order. I'm going to be the boring planner here and remind members that the test for whether or not we approve an application isn't whether or not you could make it better, whether or not you personally could make it. You don't like the design. It's whether or not there's material harm to the area. I would say, yes, this is a functional building, but efforts have been made, as Shanta pointed out, to try and break up the bulk of the building with that central drop in the ridge line, some additional projecting features to create some shadow lines, and the step down in the buildings from one elevation to the rear. So, you know, as I say, what we've got before us is an application for a scheme that we don't just look at its design, we have to consider all of the planning matters in the balance. And when you factor in the reuse, efficient reuse of previously developed land, the provision of an up-to-date modern facility, providing care, obviously that has to be weighed into the balance against the any concerns you may have about the design. The point I would also make in that regard is it's not a heritage asset around here, it's not in a conservation area, it doesn't materially impact on any listed buildings. So the question then is the design per se in itself bad enough to refuse when you weigh it against all of those other factors? I would say, obviously, from an officer's point of view, we think enough an effort has been made to try and make this an interesting building, but I do appreciate it's very much a subjective matter, and I'll leave that to members to make their own decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we've got councillors Martin, Filmer and Slocum. So councillor Martin first, please.
Thank you, Chair. As it happens, the last three speakers, I think, have sort of wrapped up everything that I wanted to say in one in three different speeches. The first thing is that, yes, I agree with the concerns on the architect from the architectural point of view, in as much as I'm a great fan of liturgical buildings in general, and although, you know, aside from the religious connotations, it always seems a bit of a shame that they should be got rid of, unless the mahogany inside's coming my way, of course, that's a different matter. But I also feel for the architect that's had to try and square this particular circle. He's had a brief to provide ultimately a functional building and then try and make it nice on the outside. And I don't envy him that, or them that. It's a difficult thing to do, but the first question has to be functionality. No, I don't like the idea of knocking down a chapel. I would like to see a lot more green space outside. Green space is always welcome, especially close to the school. We want kids to see as much green space as possible, and they will see this every day going to and from. And there was another point which currently eludes me, but I'll come back to that if I need to. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Filmer.
Thank you very much that the architect has done a decent job in terms of the bulk massing of the building. He's pulled it away from the boundaries in a number of places, which improves the layout over what was there before. But personally, I still have a problem with the external design as to the impact that's going to have on the character of the street scene. We do have policy D2, which is promoting high quality and inclusive design. I don't think this meets that. I wouldn't want at this point to be recommending refusal. Personally, I would like us to have another opportunity for the architect to see if they can come up with something that helps address that. If they don't, then we will have. But I would be happy to propose that we have a deferral to allow further negotiations in terms of the design and the impact on the street scene. There are issues that could be addressed. When you look at the buildings that were relatively recently built next door, and the design of those were done to try and make them blend in with the area, and there are features within there. There are fenestration issues, there are roofline issues. I mean, if you look at the existing building, it doesn't have chimneys, so I'm not asking for chimneys. But if you look, there are features on the roof which break up that line, which this doesn't. I think there are ways that this could be improved dramatically with external fenestration improvements, which would allow me to support it. If it came to me as it stands now, I don't think I could support it, but I would be very happy to propose that we give a deferral. The architects heard discussion we've had around the table as well. So is our office up. It's up to others to decide whether that's a way forward.
Thank you. I have one further speaker at the moment, Councillor Slocum. I'll take you first, Councillor Slocum, and then officers can respond to the suggestion or proposal for deferral. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, I'm definitely second the proposal. I couldn't support this. I believe this is against D2 and it does cause material harm to the surrounding area. I quite understand that you've got planning to knock down a building, but what we haven't got, as an authority, we've got to care about what goes in its place. And I don't think this meets the need of the surrounding area. So I'm so sorry I couldn't support it.
Thank you. At this stage, would officers like to respond to the way the discussion is going?
Yeah, only to say that I think if that is the way the members want to go, and I appreciate you can have a vote on that, and it's going to deferral, I think we would, the architects and an applicant that are here, I think they would need to have a bit more of a steer about what exactly is it you're looking for. Is it a bit more detailing? Is it, I presume that members aren't talking about whole scale redesign, because if members were, I would be saying, well, you should have the courage of your convictions. If you think it's that bad, then you should be refusing it and giving them an opportunity to appeal. But I think it would be helpful if members could give a bit more of a steer as to what you would be looking for. That's not me recommending you do defer. I actually think that weighing in the planning balance, I think it should be approved, but I respect members' rights to take a different view.
Thank you. Councillor Filmer, would you like to?
Yeah, I think on both of the three, I think there are elements to do, particularly fenestration in terms of the windows. If you look at the character of the buildings there at the moment, there are a lot of features within that. And we've got other developers who've done developments for us around what was the old Central, where they looked at character in villages and taken features and built them into the character of their new buildings. I think just building some of that to this building could make it very much more impressive as a building, something that we can all go past with pride, thinking actually, yeah, that looks like, okay, the original old building has gone, but there is something there which has got some character that benefits the street scene. I think at the moment that does, unfortunately. And I know it's beauty's in the eye of the beholder, but we're here to give our views and hopefully improve designs as they come through. But that would be my suggestion too. I think it's fenestration, it's roof line, as I say, breaking up something. And I'd say I'm not looking at building like this to have chimneys. There are, I think, other things you can do, but there are features that can be just to break up the whole bulk of that elevations that go facing onto Oxford Street in particular.
Yeah, I would say that the roof line is pretty broken up. If you're including that in the recommendation, that's Councillor Murphy, and then I will take it to a vote.
I would like the phrase that comes into mind is design keys. I mean, we are all, very conscious, and I wasn't at the town council, I don't know what they said or whatever, but we're all conscious of the history of the convent and its position in history, in heritage in the town. I realise that it is not something that possibly we would want to make a big thing about, but there isn't even a circular little window anywhere at the top of these little peaks, that not even one over a doorway, not even a lintel that looks like it was a church, that was a reference that you walked by and you saw something, design keys, I beg you, design keys that might complement your wonderful way of looking at things. It's not a problem for that. If we can get a few design keys, and I think that would alter the things enough for us to accept it. And I would like to add that to Councillor Filmer's statement.
Councillor Murphy, oh, we've got a few, Councillor Martin, and then Councillor Slocum and Councillor Grimes.
Thank you for your indulgence, Chair. The piece that I wanted to come back on previously, also talking about Councillor Filmer's comments and those from Mr. Elder. I think I've spent a lot of time reading through the comments, and there were a lot of them on this application from members of the public regarding this historical building, whether it's listed or not. It's locally, it's a historical building, but this is an excellent example. This is the point I wanted to make, an excellent example of the planning process. As Mr. Elwood pointed out, there are various things that we have to take into consideration. These are actually called material considerations. And the flip side of that is Councillor Filmer's very wise suggestion. We have the black and the white of the legal side. We are in that the grey. We take that into consideration. But a few of the comments in the public are saying that if we allowed this to go through, we wouldn't be doing our jobs properly. We don't get to choose necessarily on whether, not necessarily, we don't get to choose on things whether we like them or not. There's a legal side, there's a policy side, and then we have the experiential side from councillors like Councillors Filmer and Slocum, Bolt. So I do want to just assure the public that this isn't something that we're going to vote on because we necessarily like it or not. This comes down to experience, to law and the material considerations. I don't like the idea, but if it's a good planning proposal, we'll try and get it as nice as we can, but we have constraints as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Slocum.
I think it's quite easy, really. I think that this is a home, and it's going to be a home, and I would like to see it not look like an office block or not look like something else I mentioned earlier. And I think with a due respect, I think there can be more sensitivity to that second picture that's down there, that black line roof going across. I think you can make this look a little sensitive. You can make this look something better than an office block. And I think designers of this quality, this won't be a problem to them.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Grimes.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a comment, really. We talked about the religious side of the building that was there. I don't know how many of you know that the actual new vicar lives in the building within that curtilage. She lives in one of those houses. So that is a vicarage as well. So just
well, I'm not sure what that
thing.
something you can take into.
No, it isn't. But what it is pointing to what we're talking about, design and everything else.
Thank you, Councillor Grimes. If we've got no further debate, the proposal is for a deferral on grounds of policy D2 on a deferral to allow for further negotiation regarding the impact on the street scene, namely on the external fenestration, character, roof lines, features to break up the bulk of the elevation, and for design keys reference to the existing church building. Is that happy?
The Chairman, could we add that material harm? We can, we want to avoid material harm.
Well, I think that's contained within
But that's
policy.
what our legal man
B2.
said, and just I picked up on what he said. Our solicitor, is it, our solicitor, sorry, I do beg your pardon, sorry.
No, that's,
Legal plan,
yeah,
officer, yeah, I picked up on his words. I did-
Through you, Chair, if it's okay. I think the fact that you've listed what you think would avoid that material design harm would be enough in terms of the noting on the decision of the minutes, sorry, the decision to, if it were to be voted on this. Yeah.
so we have a proposer to defer for all the reasons I've stated. Councillor Filmer, seconded by Councillor Slocum. All those in favour, please show. Oh, no. Can we just do a count, please? Those against, please show. Please. And so that means there's no abstentions. No abstention. Okay, so that is carried. Thank you, members. And yeah, we're just fetching Councillor Petrie back. We'll just give a couple of minutes so that we can just change the presentations and offers for the next application.
Any questions? Nice. Was on.
Ah, so he's turned up for no reason at all.
I'll break.
I do turn in this video on.
Oh, you're so.
I have a name for something.
It's, what's the name? He's Scott's brother. He's the one that's been a big building.
Yeah.
Behind Bayless Mill. I say this is behind, well, don't knock your nose. That's why I do these, I'm actually sick.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, members. We'll now go on to our second application of the afternoon. That's agenda item 6, and that is the application for land to the north of Hellings Lane in Cheddar, erection 28 dwelling, on pages 45 to 82. Lily, would you like to take us through the presentation, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. So this is the application on land to the north of Hellier's Lane in Cheddar for the erection of 28 dwellings and associated works. The application is before committee because the parish council
Sorry, but the presentation aren't changed. Haven't changed. I'm not on my screen. I don't know about others. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Sorry, it was all fine here, so I assume, oh, hang on, that thing's, let me get rid of that. Okay, so the application is for members because it's a major, so it didn't get referred. And the parish council, Cheddar Parish Council are objecting concerns about highways impacts, affordable housing provision and surface water drainage. And Axbridge Town Council, who are the adjoining parish, are also objecting because of concerns about highways impacts. Since the publication of the report, there have been a few tweaks to the conditions. These mostly relate to trigger points. So just clarification that EV charging points and cycle storage, it relates to each dwelling. So it's not prior to occupation of any of the plots. It's so that each plot does have that available when it comes to occupying those properties. So I think that is mostly, and just sort of clarification, like I say, about the triggers that they relate to specific plots. Okay, quite a lot of the policies in the local plan are relevant for this one. Cheddar also has a neighbourhood plan, and then this is the list of sort of the key main planning considerations as well. So the application site is located to the north of Hellier's Lane with residential development surrounding it. The site currently comprises a nursery/retail business, which is accessed via Sharpen Road to the north. So approximately where the blue pin is on that aerial is the access point for the business. So the application seeks full planning permission for the erection of 28 dwellings, including the creation of access onto Hellier's Lane and associated landscaping, with an attenuation pond located within the southwest corner of the site. The development would be partly sited on existing greenhouses and polytunnels that are associated with the existing nursery business. So there are quite a few drawings that I'm going to show you in terms of the different house types. So on each of these slides in the top left corner, I've circled which plots these drawings relate to. So this is the 4-bed property that would be on plots 1 and 21. We then have the 2-story 3-bed property in those 4 plot locations. So plots 3 and 5 are a 3-bed, with plot 3 being finished in brick and plot 5 proposed to be finished in reconstituted stone, with some slight differences in window positions from each other, but they are the same house type. This is a 3-bed house type. Oh no, it's not, sorry, the notes are wrong. Apologies, this is a 4-bed house type. And then this again is a, sorry, I'm doubting my notes now, but this is also a 3-bed house type. So the plot 8 is to be finished in brick, with the other ones finished in render. So these are the 1-bed flats that are affordable housing units in the top left-hand corner. So whilst they are flats, they have the appearance of effectively a pair of semi-detached properties, and each flat has access to its own front door. So these are also more of the affordable housing units. These are 2-bed houses. And then we go back to some of the open market dwellings. So these are 2-bed properties. And then we move on to photos of the site. So this, again, with these, I've done a site plan on each photo with a yellow dot to indicate the sort of approximate location where I was stood when I took the photo. So the field currently has a field access from Hellier's Lane. So that is where the proposed access is going to be. So this is looking towards the west along Hellier's Lane. As you can see, opposite the application site, there's relatively modern housing development. And on the same side of the road as I am, there is a housing development under construction, essentially where, you know, sort of behind where that hedge is in the photo. This is stood in the same location, just looking the other way along the road. So then this is moving towards the southern part of the site, looking towards the southwest, and those yellowish sort of houses are is the residential scheme that's currently under construction. And then looking towards the northwest, or panning round. And then this is stood further within that part of the site, looking towards the south, so you can sort of see a bit clearer the types of property that are along Hellier's Lane in this part. And then this is looking towards the northeast. So as you can see, you can just about start to see the polytunnels that are associated with the garden nursery business. And then this is looking towards the residential property that are along Sharpen Road. They have quite long gardens. You can just about see them. And then this is sort of more within the garden centre areas, which previously were used for growing stock, which I will come on to later. And again, sort of views from within the site, looking north. So yeah, as you can see, the polytunnels and the greenhouse. This is sort of looking towards the south. And then that's sort of looking back within the site, so to the west. Then in a similar location, looking north. And then looking north again, so you can see the sort of adjacent properties that are along Sharpen Road. And then this is a picture of some of the garden centre buildings which are to remain as the business is to continue. Again, I'll come on to that shortly. So in terms of the, I'm gonna move my mouse. In terms of the principle of development, the application site falls partly within the development boundary, which I don't know if it's that clear on the image, but where the green line is the development boundary for Cheddar, with the remaining area within the housing allocation made by policy BE6 for the Cheddar neighbourhood plan. So that neighbourhood plan allocation isn't shown on this map because the pink bit is a local plan allocation for housing. But it's effectively the gap between the pink area and the development boundary. So that's the part that's allocated by the neighbourhood plan for housing. The policy in the neighbourhood plan allowed for 177 homes total across the Helliers Lane area and Round Oak Farm sites. At Round Oak Farm, 96 dwellings have been consented, and at Helliers Lane, so far 60 have. So this brings the total to 156 consented dwellings, with a remainder of 21 of the allocation. So whilst the proposal is for 28, given that the surplus of 7 dwellings is not considered to be significantly detrimental, especially given the 5-year housing land supply position of the former Sedgemoor area. The site currently accommodates a nursery business with a retail element that has become the main part of the business in more recent years. The proposal seeks to develop land that has previously been used for growing plants to serve the business, and the retail part of the business is to remain. The submitted planning statement sets out that as stock is brought in from suppliers rather than being grown on the site, that this land is no longer considered to be required for the business to continue operation, and it's also not proposed to lose any employment from this business either. Considering affordable housing, the proposal seeks to provide 22.5%. So the reason for the sort of a bizarre percentage is that a blended approach has been used, as the site is made up of both greenfield and brownfield. So this is to be delivered through 6 dwellings on site and a financial commuted sum to be secured by Section 106 to make up the remainder 0.3 units. The Affordable Housing Officer is commented on the scheme. They're happy with the blended approach. They did comment that the dispersal of the affordable housing units could perhaps be improved. However, given that they are sited close to open market dwellings and the sort of scale of the proposal, it's not considered to be unacceptable that they are located. I have marked them with a yellow star on that plan. I don't know if you can see. So yeah, okay. So considering the open market dwellings and the housing mix, this is broadly in line with the criteria in policy D5. In respect of other commuted sums that are proposed to be sought, the NHS have recommended a financial contribution, and this would be secured by Section 106. And then therefore the proposal is considered compliant with policy D28 of the local plan. Originally an education contribution was requested. However, considering the site is in the former north area where there is SIL in operation, this would be funded through SIL rather than a Section 106. So this is therefore considered to be compliant with policy D27, the local plan. In terms of policy D34, this sets out that the expectations of new residential developments in terms of delivery of on-site play space and the maximum distances from facilities. The proposal seeks to include a focal green space play area within the centre of the development, centred around an oak tree. This has been reviewed by the Parks and Open Spaces Officer and considered that this provision is acceptable, with the recommendation that the exact specification and delivery of the LAP to be secured by Section 106 obligation. Considering the council's placemaking principles and sustainability considerations, the proposal is considered to be in close enough proximity to the main amenities of Cheddar, along with an accessible route for pedestrians and cyclists. Additionally, the submitted energy and sustainability statement sets out that the dwellings proposed are to be served by air source heat pumps and solar PV systems. If consent were to be granted, conditions would be applied to secure details regarding EV parking and cycle storage, along with the standard water efficiency condition for new dwellings. So we sort of now move on to the details of the scheme. So the application site, whilst at the edge of Cheddar, is in close proximity with existing residential development. In respect of the Mendip Hills National Landscape designation, so what was formerly known as the AONB, this is approximately 900 metres from the edge of this site. And considering the distance and the intervening development between the two, it's not considered that this proposal would have a detrimental impact on the AONB. An LVIA, so Landscape Visual Impact Assessment, has been submitted and sets out mitigation measures that are to be incorporated into the landscaping plan, which is proposed to be secured by condition. The LVIA also concluded that by year 10, the impact of the proposal would have a slight adverse impact on the surrounding landscape, but is considered to be acceptable because of the mitigation measures that can be secured. Considering the site layout, this is comparable to the surrounding residential developments, and it's not considered to result in a cramped or contrived pattern of development. And then considering the details of the houses themselves, the house types proposed are of a size, scale, design and finish that is considered to be in keeping with the character of the surrounding area. And therefore, in this respect, the proposal is considered to be compliant with policies D2 and D19 of the local plan and BE4 of the neighbourhood plan. I also realise that I forgot to put a slide about highways, so I'm just going to read some notes that I have made. So there's no objection from highways, and they've made a recommendation to secure the highway works to the junction by section 106, and also other conditions to secure other highways elements in terms of parking and surface water disposal, things like that. In terms of the parking provision, each of the properties except for the one bedroom flats has two parking spaces. The one bed flats each have a parking space. The scheme itself also includes 14 garages. So that's in addition to those 2 parking spaces per dwelling that I've mentioned. And the 5-bed property, which is the one at the top of the site, as well as having those 2 parking spaces, it also has a double garage. So it's considered that there is sufficient parking provision within the site. We then move on to ecology. So a shadow HRA was submitted setting out the potential impacts on the SAC. So SAC stands for Special Area of Conservation. The shadow HRA sets out that the proposal would result in a permanent loss of approximately 0.48 hectares of potential foraging habitat. This was accompanied by a HEC calculation concluding that 0.16 hectare and 0.13 hectares of replacement habitat would be required for greater and lesser horseshoe bats respectively. So the proposed development seeks to provide more than what was set out as needed by the HEC. So proposed to provide 0.19 hectare for greater horseshoe bats and 0.13 hectare for the lesser horseshoe bats. And therefore, the scheme is considered to be able to propose the scheme is considered to be able to provide the required mitigation. The shadow HRA therefore concludes that it's highly unlikely that the proposal would result in a significant impact on protected species and their habitats, providing that the mitigation set out in the document can be secured by conditions. Natural England reviewed the shadow HRA and set out that providing that the LPA are satisfied that a sensitive lighting strategy can be provided, that the shadow HRA can be endorsed. Following on from this, the county ecologist confirmed that the shadow HRA can be adopted, and therefore the responsibility under Regulation 63 of the Conservation of Habitats and Species regulations is considered to be fulfilled. In respect of other ecology matters, the county ecologist is satisfied that appropriate conditions can be used to secure a range of biodiversity enhancement and mitigation measures. Additionally, whilst the scheme was submitted prior to the introduction of the BNG legislation, the proposal sets out to procure off-site gains, and this would also be proposed to be secured by the Section 106. It's therefore considered that in this respect, the scheme is compliant with policies D20 and D23 of the local plan. Now we move on to surface water management. So the parish council and third parties raised concerns that the proposed scheme would not be served by a suitable surface water management scheme, and that existing surface water management issues in the vicinity would be exacerbated by the proposal. The LLFA have reviewed the submitted details and have raised no objection to the principle of the scheme and have recommended conditions to secure further details in respect of a sustainable surface water drainage scheme. The IDB also have no objection to the scheme, are accepting of the discharge rate for the site. They have also recommended to secure a surface water overland flow exceedance plan by condition. It's therefore considered that in this respect, the scheme is compliant with policy D1 of the local plan. Considering residential amenities, so in terms of the amenities of neighbouring residents, the proposed dwellings are considered to be an adequate distance from existing and under construction dwellings, that there would not be a detrimental impact in terms of overlooking, overshadowing or over-dominance. In respect of the amenities of future occupiers of the proposed dwellings, each of the dwellings is considered to be served by adequate external amenity space, with internal accommodation meeting national space standards and adequate levels of natural light to all habitable rooms. The proposed dwellings are considered to be well distanced from each other, and if consent were to be granted, conditions would be used to prevent first floor windows on certain elevations of plots 13 and plot 16 to prevent unacceptable overlooking. And that's because of the sort of juxtaposition of the houses to each other. And it's considered that if a window was to be inserted, that would be a problem, but we can condition it that doesn't happen without our prior approval. Environmental Health have also reviewed the scheme and have recommended a condition to secure a KEMP to protect amenities of neighbouring residents, and also a contaminated land contaminated land reporting to protect the amenities of future occupiers. A third party raised concern that the proposals would generate antisocial behaviour. That the designing out crime officer from the police force has raised no objection to the proposal. And ultimately, if criminal activity were to occur, this would be a police matter, but there's no fundamental concern with the design that, would result in hotspots, essentially, of likely hotspots of criminal activity. So to summarise, if consent were to be granted, a Section 106 agreement would be used to secure obligations in respect of affordable housing, so that's delivery on site as well as the commuted financial sum, NHS financial contributions, details and securing the LAP, highway works to the junction, and also securing BNG off-site credits. The proposed obligations are considered to meet the statutory tests set out in legislation and the NPPF, and the applicant is agreeable to these proposed obligations. So considering the planning balance, the north area does not have a 5-year housing land supply, and therefore the tilted balance is engaged. This means, therefore, that the consideration of this planning balance is tilted in favour of granting planning permission, unless there are adverse impacts that significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. The officer's assessment has identified that there would be considerable benefits from granting permission, including the sustainable location of the development, the effective use of land, and the provision of affordable housing. In addition to this, the site falls partly within the development boundary, with the remainder within the housing allocation set by the neighbourhood plan. The proposal also seeks to provide policy compliant affordable housing provision and an appropriate open market housing mix. In respect of the constraints of the site, a shadow HRA has been submitted and endorsed and considered to be an acceptable assessment by Natural England and the county ecologist. So as well as conditions to secure ecology mitigation enhancements, other conditions can be used to secure measures in respect of highway safety, surface water management, and other mitigation measures to ensure no detrimental impact on visual or residential amenities. Also, a Section 106 is to be used to secure the relevant financial and delivery obligation. It is therefore considered that the proposed development is compliant with relevant policies of the local plan and neighbourhood plan, and the officer's recommendation is to grant planning permission subject to appropriate conditions and Section 106 obligations. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. We have two speakers on this item. Firstly, I'd like to invite Councillor Clive Panshod, representing Cheddar Parish Council, who is objecting.
No problem.
You've got your 3 minutes. Just let us know when you're ready to start and we'll set the timer.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, committee. The Cheddar Parish Council have objected to this application not to prevent these extra 28 houses, but deep concerns which we have not seen addressed regarding existing flooding of Headingley Lane due to inclement weather. The report submitted by the Flood Assessment and Drainage Strategy comments the risk of surface water flooding the site is very low, which appears to be okay then. What about the additional aggregation of flooding outside of the site? You can ask anybody living in the development opposite, and they will tell you that when there is excessive heavy rain, flooding surface water can be as much as 20 centimetres deep. And that is before this development is built. With climate change, this is a disaster waiting to happen. This has been reported many times, but nothing gets done. The new development by Bellway Homes, which is down at the bottom, has its pumps going 24 hours when there's inclement weather. So this proves there is a problem. Soft landscaping should be included on the site, and this would help to mitigate flooding. Also, the council feel that no further development should take place until the footbridge is installed on the old narrow 5-way bridge. This was a condition of planning application 17/15/42 under a section 106 agreement, which is still outstanding. With heavy lorries using this bridge and the road to the industrial estate, this again is an accident waiting to happen. Pedestrians take their life in their hands when using the bridge to get to Sharpen Road in the cycle path. Finally, the NHS Integrated Care Board Section 106 must be spent in Cheddar to provide our existing NHS services for the residents of Cheddar in view of the increased housing and population. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. You raised a number of points there, but we'll take those after the following speaker. Okay, thank you. So our second speaker is Tony Hammock of the Property Link Consult. And again, 3 minutes. We'll start when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members. My name is Tony Hammock, the planning agent for this application, and I'm here to in support of the proposal to construct 28 homes and associated infrastructure on behalf of my clients, Coral Residential. The site is surrounded by existing homes and is designed as at an appropriate scale with an open feel and green space. It has high pedestrian connectivity levels to local amenities and is easily accessed from Hellier's Lane to the wider villages with existing pavements. The site is partially within the existing settlement boundary allocated for new housing development in the Cheddar neighbourhood plan. And as a former family garden centre, it is partially brownfield land. It is a logical infill site, smaller than some other recently built, and could provide suitable homes for a mix of people. The site is sensitively designed to reflect its local setting and complies with local planning policies and national planning objectives. There are no objections from planning and technical officers, and limited concerns regarding highways and drainage impacts which have been addressed and satisfied. A high level of retained trees and hedges have been incorporated together with new native species planting, open green space and children's play equipment. Ecology improvements and mitigation is proposed, including a bat house tower, bird boxes and bee brick. Lighting is designed to be low impact, and acknowledgement has been given to climate change in respect of high sustainability and energy efficiency levels of homes and surface water drainage proposals. Each home will be powered by an air source heat pump with optional solar PV panels. All homes will have an electric vehicle charging point and high insulation levels and cycle storage. The external material palette would be locally sourced and is designed to reflect the existing vernacular. Each home has driveway parking, and some have garages too, with visitor parking distributed throughout the site. Approval of this application delivers significant benefits, including still contributions in the region of 359,484, 6 affordable homes plus a contribution of 0.3% towards off-site housing. This is a blended approach of 22.5% as the site is partially brownfield and partially greenfield. NHS financial contributions of biodiversity net gain, sustainable location and effective use of the land. The site design has evolved in collaboration with planning officers and consultees. I commend this application and hope that members will endorse the planning officer's recommendations for approval. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. There are a number of issues that councillor Pancho raised around flooding concerns, soft landscaping, the footbridge and outstanding section 106. And also, can you provide some information on the conditions around the NHS?
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. So in terms of the existing flooding concerns, so as discussed in my presentation, the LLFA and the IDB have reviewed the scheme. Additional information was required at one point, I'm fairly sure, but essentially they are satisfied with what has been provided, and that any additional detail can be secured by condition. So they're not objecting to the scheme. In terms of soft landscaping, so there's two relevant conditions. So there's the sort of standard landscaping plan, so to secure the scheme within sort of good amount of time, the planting season following, I think it's occupation of the last dwelling. And then we've also got the LEA MMP, which is essentially to do with ecology. So the replacement habitat that's required for the greater and lesser horseshoe bats. So that is also secured, and that will naturally provide soft landscaping because of the nature of that. In terms of the footbridge, so that would be a matter for whoever that section 106 or planning conditions relate to. That does not relate to this site in terms of it's not this scheme that has that section 106 obligation. So that would be a matter for planning enforcement or the planning obligations team to investigate. And in terms of the NHS financial contribution, so the way the NHS calculate these contributions is that they look at the sort of predicted population that this scheme would potentially bring to Cheddar, and then they assess the capacity of the relevant health facilities in the area, and that's how they then come up with a figure based on that if those schemes are not considered to be have capacity. So their comment is quite detailed, so I haven't put it in verbatim into my report, but it is quite prescriptive, the amount of money that they're requesting, and that is based on the local need in Cheddar.
Then councillor Henry, then councillor Bolt.
Thank you, Chair. A question for my colleagues over there, or possibly for the opposite. Do we know whether Cheddar or Axbridge have a current and valid housing needs assessment?
I don't know what the numbers are, but there is a current housing needs assessment. It's carried out by another developer who's about to be putting in a proposal for building in Axbridge. I think their housing, I can't remember what it was for, something like 16 maybe. But don't quote me on the numbers, but there is a current one available.
So our officers able to?
I don't know, if I'm honest, if it's to do with, if it's one that's been commissioned specifically for a certain project, then I wouldn't know
It was
about
it was a private
Yeah,
commission, and the application's not in yet.
Right, okay.
And our discussion must focus on this application.
Lovely, thank you. But yeah, the housing needs assessment, as our friend just mentioned, does need to be on this application.
Yeah.
But
We haven't got anything on this application.
no, but also if it was if it was done by the developer, I would wonder whether it was legally valid or whatever. Yeah, but I wonder if no, speaking to the room generally, if anybody knows or might want to comment in the future if there is a current housing needs assessment for either Cheddar or Axbridge, I'd be interested to know that at some point. Thanks.
Chair, can I just come in there? Sorry, hi. So whether or not there's a housing needs assessment isn't really relevant for this one. The principle of this scheme is supported by the fact that it's partially within the development boundary. So the dwellings within the development boundary, the principle's agreeable because it's within the development boundary. The part of the land that's outside the development boundary is allocated by the neighbourhood plan specifically for housing. So the numbers are 7 over the allocation, but it's considered that given the 5-year housing land supply, that it is only 7, you know, proportionately compared to what the overall allocation is, it's not considered to be unacceptable because it's not been overdevelopment of the site. So that's why there's been no mention of housing needs assessment. Generally, housing needs assessments are for exception sites. So where you've got the policy like T2, A or B in the local plan, those are for schemes that are outside of settlements that are only coming forward because they provide a specific need for a specific area. But that isn't this principle, the policy that this is coming under.
Yeah, many thanks. That's really useful. Thank you. Councillor Hendry.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of things here. First, page 50. This is just me over. I'm going to mention it. Page 50, about halfway down the page, 02/10/2024, Chair of Parish Council. Line number 5, it says the attention point. That's a long spell. There should be attenuation point. I'm just picking up on that, okay? So that has to be changed at some point. This is not correct. So if we go back to page 46, item 2.2, and I quote, the proposal seeks to deliver an acceptable level of affordable housing that is in line with the policy and affordable housing team, and they are agreeable. That takes care of that absolutely overall, and I think that's really good. Okay, let's not dwell on that. Next paragraph down, there are no objections from consultees. Now, I take that as being all the consultees all across the board. The statutory consultees. That being the case, if they're on board with that, then it's not for me to argue against it. I have to go with that as well. We're not going to beat to death all policies and policy numbers, the NHS, the footbridge. This has already been discussed here just now, and it's been spelled out, and everybody knows where we are with that. Generally speaking, just want to wrap this up for myself and say, I don't have any problem with this whatsoever, and everything's been talked about can be mitigated, and it's absolutely with me fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hendry. Councillor Bolt.
Just a clarification, I think it's on your condition 16. Is that applied when people have moved in? Will they be restricted on what exterior lighting they'll be able to put up?
Yes, they will be restricted. So that is quite standard in terms of external. So the standard external lighting condition we use anyway does restrict any additional external lighting. This lighting condition is effectively a beefed up version of the standard one because of the specific, it's quite a sensitive site because of the proximity to the core bat zone in Cheddar.
Yes, so
Yeah.
There's a lot there to read.
There is,
and
yeah.
I can't see it specifically saying any new householder will not be able to.
So it says in the first paragraph, so further detail to be submitted for the remainder of additional external lighting to be installed. And then at the end, before the reason, it says, unless otherwise agreed in writing, all external lighting should be installed in accordance with the specifications and maintained thereafter. So that effectively prohibits any external lighting to be installed without prior approval.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Filmer.
Couple of questions. Can we possibly have the site plan up? On the picture that, out of curiosity, to some extent, you can see on those plans anyway.
Sorry.
There's a run of green through the middle of the site, open space. Was just wondering if there was any particular reason as to why that was there. Is there an easement or something that stops development there? It's just interesting to see a complete run of non-development in the middle of the site, which is unusual. Just wanted also clarification. Following our last meeting, where we had long discussion about dimensions of garages, just wanted reassurance that the garages aren't the dimensions that we require them to be a real garage, not a non-functional garage, as we were told last time. And the final question was to do with access. You mentioned this highway access to the south areas. Is there any access to the north pedestrian or is all access just through the Heliers side? There's nothing going out to Sharp Road itself.
Yeah, so it's all down through Heliers Lane. The garages, yes, they are functional size garages. And in terms of the green space, so from memory, I think I want to say there's a sewer, but I can't remember exactly, but it worked well because it helped retain a dark space for bats. So I can't remember the exact reason why it's there, but I think that might be it. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Hand.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just surprised and concerned by the attitude towards the highways access. Excuse me, the access to Hellier's Lane as it stands at the moment, I know they say they're going to improve it. But as you drive down that road, you can't actually even see Hellier's Lane until you're upon it. It's a very narrow part of the road, very close to the Sharpen Road access, which is also adjacent to a very narrow bridge. All of that said, there's no footway. So if you're saying it's safe, the amenities aren't close by, they're a substantial walk away. And you would have to walk down roads without footpaths in whichever direction you go to get to the amenities or to get to the schools. And if there's additional traffic queuing to turn right into Hellier's Way, that will automatically create a queue of traffic, which is likely to extend to the junction with Sharpen Road and to not be visible as you come over the narrow bridge at Five Ways. I've got great concern about that. Thank you.
Would you like to respond?
Yes, so the Highways Authority have reviewed this. So when they review a scheme, they don't just look at is there enough spaces or is there enough visibility? They do consider traffic generation and the surrounding development existing and under construction. They haven't raised an objection. They haven't objected on any basis of traffic generation or anything like that. In terms of pavements, I did effectively a Google walk from here into to Cheddar, and whilst okay you have to cross Hellier's Lane, it's a 30-mile-an-hour road and there is pavement on the other side, so it's not considered to be unacceptable that road could be crossed by pedestrians in order to then access the wider area.
Oh, there's only pavement if you're going to the right. If you're going to the left, there is no pavement at all.
Councillor Hendry.
Thank you. A couple of things. One thing I forgot to ask is, unless I missed it in the paper, I don't know, is this flood zone 1, 2, 3, 3A?
It's not in a flood zone.
That's what I started. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Second point about this traffic movement. That amount of houses don't generate a huge volume of traffic movement to cause concern. That is just my opinion. Absolutely. If you break it down, the figures, what that should be, I haven't got off the top of my head, but it wouldn't cause such a problem at all. And what I said about the statutory consultation, if highways are on board with this, that's good enough for me. So I'm happy to move forward with this as it is just now. Thank you.
Councillor Hendry. Now I've got Councillor Slocum and then Councillor Bolt.
Just as other plan is on there, just wanted to ask, on the top right-hand corner, is that the 5-bedroom? Is that I'm talking about integration of affordable housing. Is that there, or is that just garages onto the left of it?
So this is the 5-bed property. The affordable housing properties are here. So that's the 1-bed flats that looks like the pair of semis. And then these are the 2-bed dwellings. So these are the affordable housing units. So whilst they are in one area of the site, it's considered that they're surrounded by open market dwellings, and considering the numbers as well that we're dealing with here, it's not considered unacceptable that they're in that location.
Just to pass this integration, and I just was a bit concerned that's a 5-bedroom house there, and that's 1-bedroom flats next to it. Am I right?
No, sorry.
Just put your arrows.
Yeah, I thought it was working. So
I'm on the top right. I'm on the top.
Can you see my arrow up there? So that's the 5-bedroom property.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to move down here. Those are the 1-bedroom flats.
Okay. So what is that up the left then? What is that on the top? When you go on the right hand side, you've got the 5-bedroom. What is that towards the left of it?
Well, it's a terrace of open market dwellings.
I see. Thank you. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bolt.
Yeah, just to peace of mind, I gather tracking's been done so that your waste vehicles can get in. They don't have to take it all down to the charge.
Councillor Hendry, did you wish to come back?
I'm doing well with Davis, the third time. Right, okay. Right, okay. Here's where we are for the moment. Watch the presentation, absolutely first class. All the information is there that I need. Statutory consultees, as we've already mentioned, everybody's on board with that. I don't have any problem here whatsoever. I'll listen to what everybody's had to say, and I recommend that we go with the officers to say plan permission. Thank you.
I had logged your proposal, and do we need to add the construction environment management? We mentioned that.
I think that's already a condition. Yeah, so what's listed as condition 17 in the report is the chem.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
okay. You mentioned it and I assumed it wasn't there, but that's fine.
I will double check before I
Okay.
issue, but I'm fairly sure it is there.
So councillor Bolt was first, then councillor Smith.
We both said the same things. Just like to second the proposal, that's all.
Okay, thank you. So we've got proposal councillor Hendry to accept the officer's recommendation to grant permission. That's seconded by councillor Slocum.
Yeah, just to remind members, this is a recommendation to approve subject to the completion of the section 106.
Yes.
That's set out. Just want to clarify that point. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Are you happy with that? Yeah. Okay, so all those in favour, please show. That's 11 for, any against? 2 against, and that means there's no abstentions. And so that has passed. Thank you. Thank you, members. So we'll just give a few minutes for the new presentation to be loaded.
The original version.
Because we will now resume the meeting for the final application of this afternoon. That's agenda item 7. Planning application for Bridgewater and Albion Rugby Club, Bathrow Bridgewater, that's on pages 83 to 108. Before we go into the application, just for transparency, I've been advised I should mention that one of the speakers for this application is our principal planning officer here at Sedgemoor. I'll take it as read that we all come to this with an open mind and we won't let that influence us, but just for transparency. And if there's anybody who would like to say anything as a sort of declaration, please do it now before we start the application.
Chairman, just very briefly, although I didn't work with the agent, I have known him for about 50 years because we grew up at school together. But just for transparency, I haven't had anything to do with this application, and I'll try not to make any comments unless absolutely necessary.
Councillor Slocum.
Obviously, I think we can all declare that we know a long time and it's a very good time as well. Can I also declare, please, that I'm on the HPC Programme Board and Monitoring Board, but I've taken no part in any of this discussion.
And I'd also like to welcome Tessa and John, Principal Planning Officers linked to the HPC project. So would you like to take us through the application, please?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. Agenda item 7 is application 0825-00057. But prior to delving into the detail, I just wish to highlight a minor admin error in terms of the agenda aligning with the description in the project report. So the correct description should refer to the formation of 122 additional car parking spaces. Now, this is as what is presented in the slides that we're about to run through, and it's also as presented in the officer report. The main considerations associated with the application are considered to be the principle of development and sustainability, access and transport, drainage and flood risk, landscape and visual, residential amenity, and ecology and biodiversity net gain, and contaminated land. I will touch upon each of these issues during the conclusion of the slides. The application has been referred to committee by the Chair and Vice Chair to allow the concerns raised by the local unitary councillor to be considered and assessed by committee. I think it is worthy of note to set out some of the background detail relating to the application. I'm sure we're all fully aware of the Hinkley Point C development that is taking place within the county. The development was based on a construction workforce of approximately 5,600 workers at construction peak. This figure was based in terms of looking at any associated development that was required to help support the construction of the proposal. As you can imagine, things have progressed and the construction timeline has somewhat extended. As part of that process, it is now anticipated there's likely to be an estimated 15,000 workforce at peak construction. I wanted to make it incredibly clear to members that this process in terms of a workforce uplift is being considered as part of a separate process within the council, in which there are detailed discussions and ongoing engagement with EDF in terms of managing that impact. But as an aside from that, it is worthy of note that one of the reasons for the car parking proposal before us is in relation to facilitating that increase in workforce. One of the main issues and concerns that we sometimes hear from members of the community relate to the potential for off-street parking and fly parking not necessarily aligning with the transport strategy which is envisaged for Hinkley Point C. Hinkley Point C transport strategy focuses on ensuring that it is primarily a bus-based strategy in which workers that are not residing within the locality, they are assigned a specific car park or park and ride, in which they will go and they'll catch the bus and forward onward travel via bus onto the HPC site. There is also a number of bus stops, which I'm sure you've all noticed around the surrounding area, in which people who live within the local area and reside within a walking distance of a bus stop are to pick up the bus stop as part of the bus journey along Hinkley Point C. There is very constrained parking at the Hinkley Point C main site. The idea behind that was to ensure that movements would not negatively impact across the local highway network in terms of people potentially driving to site to work. The whole premise is based on busing people to site to try and minimise the construction, the workforce impact linked to traffic. With that background aside, here we have an aerial photograph of the Bridgewater Rugby Club. If I can just point out a few features. It is working. So here I'm highlighting the location of the Bridgewater Rugby Club. It has an existing level of parking associated with the rugby club use. Further to the south of the site here is currently informal grass space. Now this space is not demarcated by any type of pitches, it's informal grassland. And the existing parking is along here. And to the west, there is currently a hard standing area which is used for informal parking, but it is worthy of note again that as part of the original rugby club consent, there was an overflow car parking provision which provides for a number of car parking spaces which were never formally realised as part of that consent. However, the consent has been implemented, so the rugby club could in effect, not as part of this application, but they could in effect fit out those additional space. The bus stop, where we are looking in terms of the workers parking at the rugby club and then walking along the bus stop, is here at the Sedgemoor campus. It's within the site, it's not along the pavement. It's approximately a 5-minute walk. I have tested that myself, parking at the Bridgewater Rugby Club and walking along. And here on this side, we just have another location plan in terms of a little bit more clarity in terms of being able to see where we are. And here we have diagrams of the existing and proposed layout. So if I can draw your attention to the proposed layout, the predominantly area of spaces which would be provided for EDF are highlighted in a purple bluish colour. But here they would use spaces which are already in place, portion there, but the majority is here towards the west and the south. The EDF new spaces also would benefit from additional crossing points here and here. And it's intended that this would link in through in terms of the pathways, which would allow people to safely access their car and manoeuvre to the bus station. Sorry, the bus stop. I have a few photographs of the site. So this is looking at the informal grass area, which is currently present. To the south, it's mainly a chain link fence with intermittent sparse vegetation. To the western boundary, we have the railway line. Also, there are sort of warehouse style buildings. This is the western area of the site. So this is the area that is currently behind the grandstand. As you can see, it's a mix of sort of informal grass area a little bit further to the north, hard standing down here. This area is not primarily used as part of the parking for the rugby club, but this is the area which has consent via the existing rugby club consent for the overflow car parking. And these are pictures of the main rugby club car park itself as it currently stands. So this is in the northern area. So this picture here, there's some vans parked currently at present. This is the existing parking. And this is just a view of the facility further to the east, but this is a part of the EDF proposal. This is part of something that would retain within the rugby club. So as originally noted, the idea is that people would travel here, park at the site, and then walk along to the Sedgemoor campus to catch the bus stop. Consideration has been given to the safety layout of the site itself, which is considered to be acceptable, and highways have raised no concerns. We've also looked at it in terms of the safety aspect of the route. But as you can see, it's primarily served by existing pedestrian footway. We have a specific crossing here along Bath Road. And then further towards the location of the bus stop, walking further along Bath Road along the pavement. And that is where your journey would eventually end once you access the campus. In terms of planning balance, the principle of development is considered to be acceptable. In looking at this, we have looked at local planning policies of the plan in relation to sustainable development, principle of development. It is located within the principal town of Bridgewater, which has good transport links. It's using previously developed land in its vast majority. And it is considered that there wouldn't be any sort of adverse impact in terms of residential impacts or amenity aspects. It is not considered that there's any significant impact on the highway. Now, I think it's just maybe worthwhile just having a little look at the numbers, because it is quite, there's numbers in terms of what is existing, what is proposed, what has already been consented, and I think it, just to be really clear in terms of what is being proposed here. So we're looking at, in total, with the complete number of additional spaces, we would be looking at 312 car parking spaces in total. So this would consist of 120 newly created spaces. Of the 312, 164, or a maximum of 164, would be allocated to EDF. This would have a remaining number of 148 car parking spaces and 12 coach spaces for the rugby club. So in effect, this would have a 44 space reduction for the rugby club. However, as part of the application, the applicant has provided detail setting out the types of parking that is available within the site, and also what tends to the number of parking spaces which tend to be used for such uses. Again, the Highway Authority has raised no concern in regards to that aspect. The proposal is considered to align with the existing Hinkley Point C transport strategy. So that's looking at, again, as noted earlier, capturing movements prior to cutting, for example, cutting across Bridgewater Town Centre and onward travel. So it's changing those movements into bus movements and busing people to site, which is considered to be the more sustainable option. There is no increase in flood risk as part of the proposal, whilst it is maintained that the small area of the site is within flood zone 3. This is the type of development that is considered by the National Planning Policy Framework to be sort of a low impact in terms of car parking. The area which is proposed to be increased is to be constructed using a hard surfacing porous material, therefore not increasing any additional flood risk or drainage issues associated with that. The applicant did supply flood risk assessment with part of the application. That has been consulted upon by we consulted the Environment Agency and the Drainage Board, and we've had no concerns raised from those consultees. They have, however, suggested that the measures outlined in the FRA are secured as part of a planning condition in the event that planning consent is granted. Residential amenity is not considered to be significantly affected by the proposal. Where the new parking area is proposed to be located, it is within an area which is sort of tucked away a little bit within the site. So yeah, I don't think it would have any views in terms of impacting on people's privacy. The surrounding area to the south of the site, as I mentioned previously, is bordered by the railway line and also warehousing. There's a football club which is further to the south, and further again then is the Bridgewater College site itself. Biodiversity net gain is considered to have been achieved. We've received the necessary documentation from the applicant, consulted with some of their ecology services. They are now content with the proposal and have suggested conditions which were attached to the officer report. And as well, I think it's worthy to note that there is an economic benefit to Bridgewater and Albion Rugby Football Club. This is in terms of providing them with an enhanced facility, an improved facility. As we're all fully aware, the rugby club is a long-standing community sport facility within the town. It enables people takes children, I think, into training and further and beyond, and adult matches, and it's a very well used facility, and having something in terms of having a something to provide a benefit and a long lasting benefit, I think is something again worthy of note in terms of considering the application. So to summarise, the recommendation is to grant planning permission subject to the conditions set out in the officer report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Tessa. So we have two speakers on this item, and first of all, I'd like to invite Steve Smith of Bridgewater and Albion Rugby to come to the table, please. 3 minutes. Just let us know when you're ready to start, and we'll set the timer. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon. My name's Steve Smith.
Sorry, would you like to put these? That's it, thank you.
My name's Stephen Smith. I'm the chairman of Bridgewater and Albion Rugby Football Club. As mentioned just now, Bridgewater and Albion is, I think, a much loved sports club within the town. Well known. In fact, the coming season, 25-26, is going to be our 150th year celebrations. One of the oldest rugby clubs in the country. The club is run by volunteers. It's a members club, so nobody gets any commercial gain. There's no shareholders. Any profits are put back in for the benefit of sport, and not only that, as a community hub as well. As many of you may well know, the club is used for everything from weddings and bar mitzvahs to funerals, and we're used actually by the council, by the Suffolk Ambulance Service, blood donations held there, retirement from the old cellophane factory. Numerous things are facilitated daily by Bridgewater and Albion Rugby Club for Bridgewater people. As I say, the club is run by volunteers and the volunteers are constantly battling, as with everybody these days, on increasing costs. The cost of utility, the cost of staffing, the cost of legislation. We're not exempt from business legislation, but we also have sporting legislation that we have to comply with, and that comes with costs. The HPC proposal to enhance our existing car park, and it is an existing car park, and actually a lot of that area at the rear is actually used as car parking now, laid out as car parking. So I suspect actually it's not such a big number as additional parking spaces. And actually it wouldn't be, as we said, probably 50% of the capacity of that car parking, which is already there anyway, being used. But it would provide the club with much needed income over a reasonable period of time. But not only that, as was mentioned, a legacy benefit of, you see the pictures, of enhancing the rear and the side of the clubhouse and an area of land that at the moment is grass and not used. It's not a pitch of any description. It sits between the railway line, the football club car park, ironically, and our existing car park. But the enhancement for a limited period of that to a hard surface then provides us the ability to have something like a hardball surface sports to welcome back into the club along with rugby and football in the future. So it has a legacy benefit to us, which is the epitome of what the HBC being involved in the community is, as far as we're concerned. Thank you.
Very good timing. Thank you.
I would now like to ask Stuart Howlett to come to the table, please. And 3 minutes from when you're ready to start. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, members and officers. My name is Stuart Howlett and I'm the planning agent for this application. And today I'm speaking on behalf of NNB Generation Company C Limited, or EDF Energy for short. We'd like to thank the case officer for the comprehensive presentation and report that you've just heard, and also for the support throughout the process in terms of leading to a positive recommendation. Turning to the application itself, there are obviously a number of obvious benefits to the proposal. Firstly, the proposed additional parking that will be provided will fully align with the sustainable transport measures that are already in place for the Hinkley Point C project and will support the established bus strategy. Secondly, providing additional car parking capacity in this location to the east of the town will mean less worker journeys that would otherwise have to go through the town to access the parking ride sites at junctions 23 and 24. Thirdly, proposed additional car parking capacity will directly address concerns relating to fly parking in the locality, being within just 5 minutes walk of the Sedgemoor campus, as you've heard. And fourthly, as we've just heard from the chairman of the rugby club, it will also result in direct financial benefit to the club and provide additional parking capacity to support the longer term plans in the future. Therefore, a clear legacy opportunity. These benefits are consistent with the aims and expectations of the Hinkley Point C project to minimise impacts and maximise benefits for the local area. The application should provide comfort that the applicants do recognise the need to put in place measures to manage some of the impacts arising from the wider project and are actively engaging with landowners to bring these forward. As the officer report highlights, through the application process, we have provided further reassurance regarding the proposal to address the comments of the consultees. In terms of additional traffic movements associated with the temporary use by Hinkley workers, we've demonstrated that movements will be off-peak, in keeping with the existing shift patterns and bus strategy already currently in operation. Furthermore, we've demonstrated there will be no significant overlap in arrivals or departures with the other activities operating in the locality, including the rugby club, the college, or the theatre. This is accepted by the Highway Authority, as is the proposed layout of the parking spaces, as you've seen on the plan. It's also important to emphasise that unlike the other uses, the Hinkley Point C project is a managed environment with workers specifically allocated to parking areas and buses. The additional proposed parking would be subject to the same controls, including monitoring and review processes, and would be further managed through the car park management plan that's included in the recommended conditions. There are no other outstanding technical matters and no objections from the technical consultees. Therefore, given the clear benefits to the project as a whole, the rugby club and the local community, we hope that members would support the officer recommendation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Members, councillor Hendry first, then councillor Bradford, councillor Slocum, councillor Holmes. Oh, I think I'm just, yeah, keep, take the rest.
Okay,
Yeah,
this is a really difficult one. I get absolutely no problem with this whatsoever, absolutely nothing. And even before this kicks off, I would go the opposite recommendation to plan permission. Thank you.
thank you. So we've got that proposal. I've got a number of speakers that I'm going to take, and anyone can second this as we go along, if that's your wish. So councillor Slocum next.
I have to say, I had a number of questions, but I'd like to thank the officer for a very comprehensive presentation, which explained lots of things. I'd like to thank the chairman and Mr. Howlett for answering my questions that I had about overlapping. I was really worried. So with that, I feel very comfortable as well to second the proposal, and thank everyone today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bolt. You don't, no, okay. Councillor Martin.
Thank you. Yes, excellent presentation. I have no problem backing up what my colleagues just said. Apologies if I missed this, but is it 7 days a week or Monday to Friday?
Thank you. It is proposed to be 7 days a week. It is anticipated that due to the shifts minimising during the weekend period, the parking levels will be lower. So it would there, and we have been provided with information from the applicant in terms of how those uses would work with each other, taking into account the vast majority of matches, obviously, and training take place on a Saturday, or I think it was a Sunday. So that we don't consider that is to be an issue due to the usage being a little bit lower during that time. But also in addition to that, the applicant has provided information in relation to the number of spaces that they do require during the training period. So that would be on a Sunday. And there is no, it doesn't look as though there is any issue with them requiring more than what is being proposed.
Thank you. That sort of addresses it really. My question is that if the club should magically find themselves going up a league, can they use the parking spaces?
Thank you. I would imagine that one of the proposed conditions as part of the report is a car park management plan. So in that we're looking to see how, so I suppose matters like that could potentially be addressed. And I think there is that relationship there between the applicant and the rugby club in terms of working together. So the management plan is intended to provide sort of the management of the area and also the reassurances in terms of how it would work and how it has limited impact.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bruce.
Thank you, Chair. I find this a little bit difficult. I think if we were looking at putting a new park and ride so close to the centre of town, I think it would be a no for me in this location, but I can see the benefits in terms of the legacy benefits for the rugby club, which would make me want to support it. I'm concerned still in terms of ensuring that the workers that are going to use this parking are actually going to arrive from the eastern site. And I know that in the report it says the HPC are able to ensure that with their permit system, but is there anything in the conditions that says they have to ensure that? Because being able to and actually doing it are two different things. So that's the first point. And then also in terms of the review is ongoing in terms of the night shift and the back shift in terms of timings. What guarantees have we got that we will ensure that there will not be any overlap with college activity, the football club, in terms of the peak times when these numbers of workers are coming and going at the same time? I know it's been addressed to a certain point within the report, but I'd like to know whether the conditions actually make sure that that will be maintained on long term. If the shifts change for any reason, any of those shifts, what's going to enforce that? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your questions. So if I take those in turn, and if I've missed anything, then please do let me know. So the first question I noted down was in relation to us being able to monitor the usage of the of the car park in relation to looking at whether people are actually coming from the east. So in terms of that, I agree in terms of there isn't, it's not necessarily an issue, but we are looking at the development consent order, which provides for the authority for the vast amount of Hinkley Point C work. And within that, there are a number of monitoring and management mechanisms for that part of the consent. And I think when we were looking at this application, myself and the highways officer were looking at that issue in terms of ensuring that those monitoring measures and management measures were also drawn down as part of this consent as well. So as part of the monitoring of EDF's car park and park and ride, they have a system in place where they do monitor in terms of their looking to ensure that people that are accessing those locations are given that based on the postcode of where they're living, so that they're capturing them at the most efficient place. As part of this, they do undertake regular monitoring and they produce a quarterly monitoring report. This quarterly monitoring report goes to the Hinkley Point C Transport Review Group for consideration. The TRG has members which consist of EDF, the council, and the strategic highways, so national highways as well. And we'll be given this report, and we're giving it, I think, normally a week in advance, and we're given the opportunity to really go through that and in terms of raise any queries or issues, and then that's presented at TRG for consideration. So that is in terms of the monitoring framework that's already set up. So as part of the proposed conditions within the report, part of the car park management plan looks to ensure that those existing monitoring measures are picked up as part of this consent, because it's two different consenting regimes. We've got the TCPA here and the DCO on the other side. So it's looking to capture that as part of this consent to make sure it's drawn in and brought into line with the existing proposal as part of Hinkley Point C and how the project is managed. Again, in terms of, I think your second part of that was in relation to shift changes. And I agree. So shift changes are controlled as part of the development consent order. Their result, I think, is in terms of what is required in order for the construction of the development. But also EDF have maintained that they have a huge volume of workers that need to be able to get onto site. One of them, and there is also coupled with that is also the distance the workers need to travel to get to site, and the fact that they need to park and ride or a car park or catch a bus and also travel, so the time that it also takes as well. So as part of that, they have all consistently looked to ensure that the shift patterns are outside of the network peak periods. I think that's in terms of also that's possibly two reasons for that, probably more than two, but the first one would be managing that transport impact across the local highway network. And secondly, as well, it's looking to, I think, in terms of making it a viable place and an attractive place for people to work who may otherwise be put off by the fact that they don't want to sit in traffic for a large amount of time to be able to access the site. I do completely understand in terms of what you're saying in relation to shift changes, though, and that again is why part of the proposed conditions for the car park management plan includes provision in relation to the shift patterns and looking for that car park management plan to include reference to the shift patterns and how those movements would be off peak and the strategy for managing that. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to come back. The car park management plan, I'm still struggling a little bit with this. I think how does that work in terms of who's doing the car park management plan, who sees it, who gets some input into it, how is it enforced and that sort of thing? I'd just like a bit more information on that.
Thank you. So the idea would be that EDF would submit the car park management plan to us as the planners at the council. We would then consult on that with the local highway authority, so highways team. They'll provide us with comments on that. Hopefully then we would then get to the position where that can then be approved and then it would be implemented. But then in addition to that, there would be measures within the car park management plan, linking it to the monitoring, which is then where we get picked up into the overarching monitoring and management strategy goal, P3.C, and considered as part of the overall monitoring that's undertaken at the Transport Review Committee.
You need to come back.
Sorry, yeah. When you get to that point and they submit the management plan, will consultees also be the theatre and the college and the football club in terms of what's in that management plan, or will they not be consulted on that at that point?
No, they wouldn't be consulted on that, no. We have looked at the car park management plan. We've obviously got the application in the consideration of it. We have looked at those additional uses. We are aware that the parking facility at the rugby club is primarily used by the rugby club. If it is a concern in relation to the movements associated on the network with the use of the car park and the other uses of surrounding the site, so the theatre, Bridgewater College and football club, that isn't anticipated to be managed, that there isn't a huge amount of conflict from the information that's been provided by the applicant in terms of the times of arrivals and departures and the uses on the site. Again, that's been shared with the Highway Authority and they are content with that as well.
Thank you. Councillor Smedley.
That one then. Regarding direction of travel of vehicles in Bridgewater, you can hardly guarantee which way they're coming from with the roadworks just now. And that part of town is a bit difficult in terms of this. The east part of the town is difficult because there are 2 pinch points over the railway line. That said, we have identified that area as a sports hub, and it's also a college hub, and there's very little scope for it to develop beyond that area. So there are objections to this, of course, but I'd like to support this. And the reason I support that is to support the sports clubs in that area. And I think there's an opportunity to do that. So I will support this.
Before Councillor Filmer, are there any other speakers on that side of the table? Because I saw a flurry of hands at one stage. No? Okay, Councillor Filmer.
It was just really following up on Councillor Bruce's questions. The query I'd like to just get straight in my head. The moment we've been told when we are expecting the busiest time to be, when the shifts are, does the car park management plan deal with the situation if we find there is a problem and that there is conflict between the college and the theatre and traffic volume are more than are expected at the moment? How is that dealt with? What are the teeth within that we can actually, what are the sanctions of how you deal with a problem if it arises? We hope with all the planning in the best will of the world, it won't happen and everyone's worked out traffic flows work perfectly. If it doesn't quite work out like that, how do we then deal with that? Because obviously by then the commission is there and everything is supposed to be up and running.
Thank you. So I believe the intention would be, at the moment, the car park management plan, obviously we sorted out the framework in terms of the condition. So we can take that on board in terms of looking at what we would expect to see as part of that submission. That was one of the I agree, that was one of the fundamental parts of the car park management plan, was in relation to that reassurance in terms of the shift and off peak, because I think there are 2 things just to note here. The first is, whilst on the face of it, there's the proposal is for 120 additional car parking spaces. We have taken into account there is an extant consent as part of the previous rugby club permission, which permits the additional parking, which hasn't been fully built out. So there is an additional level that can, not to this extent, but could be brought sort of into use without any further consent at this stage. In relation to the shift pattern, there is something specific in the condition which requires the strategy for ensuring that the vehicle movements are considered off peak. And I would expect, as part of the car park management plan, that is explored in terms of being really clear in terms of defining what that strategy is and ensuring that that is acceptable to the Highway Authority. So that is how we would look to manage it.
think Sharon's looking for something that's enforceable and has a bit of teeth. If we need to bear teeth, that we've got them.
Well, thank you, through you, Chair. Councillor Filmer, I was just about to come in to say, the condition requires the submission of the management plan, but it also requires that the development shall thereafter be operated in accordance with that approved management plan. And, you know, it would be enforceable. I would rather hope that that situation won't arise. But should there be issues that it's not being followed, the management plan, then the first stage would be to, in terms of enforcement, we'd look to negotiate first, but yeah, it is enforceable. Thank you.
There are no further speakers, so, Councillor Bradford.
Just merely on actually.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right, don't worry. And I think I've got no problem with this. The winners all the way around, I think. Winners all the way around on this. Go back 25 years anyhow, when you used to get invited to the football, Albion rugby clubs 3 or 4 times every year for parties and that. I have played there, so there you go. No more said.
Okay, thank you for that.
Just have.
Thank you. Like I said, I think there is a lot hinging on this car park management plan. And I probably would have felt a lot more comfortable supporting this if we had this a bit more information about how that plan will look like at this stage rather than later on. But hearing what I've heard today, I'm going to put my faith in the planning officers, and we are delegating that responsibility to you. I would like to see that it is enforceable, enforced, and I would like to see consultation with the other parties that are involved to make sure there isn't any overlap. And I don't know if that can be included a bit more detail in the plan, but obviously we're happy to leave it to you guys. I'm happy to support it at this point, but with slight reservations still, but I'm going to support. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there's a response.
Yeah, thank you. Two thoughts crossed my mind. First of all, let's make it absolutely clear that for the avoidance of doubt, the applicants applied for a temporary permission. So we're only looking at a 5-year period here. If they wanted any longer than that, they would have to come back to us and we would consider it on its own merits at that time. So that's the first point. And the second point is that it's standard procedure for this authority, and as far as I know, every other local planning authority, that we don't consult when details come in pursuant to conditions, which is standard practice. Clearly, if we felt that was appropriate, we could do that, but it isn't the standard practice of this authority to do so. Thank you.
Okay, so no further speakers. We've had the proposer, Councillor Hendry, seconded by Councillor Slocum, to recommend the officer's recommendation to agree. All those in favour, please show. I think that is unanimous. Okay, thank you, members. That's the last application of the afternoon. We just now go to the final item, which is appeals. And exactly you taking us through those. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We don't have any appeal decisions to report this committee, just 2 new appeals that have been submitted recently in the period between the end of May and towards the end of June. So we have, the first one is a written representations appeal for land at Hart Road, Brent Knoll. I did look at this one myself because there was a letter from one of the MPs supporting the applicant. But this is an application in a situation where they will be demolishing a barn and erecting a much more prominent and larger self-built dwelling house. It's outside of any defined settlement in the countryside where we wouldn't normally allow the self-built dwelling house, although conversions might be allowed, and would be far more prominent. And it also has the issue in that they didn't submit sufficient evidence of potential flood risk, how that would be mitigated. So that will be a written representations report that we will just that we will obviously send a report on. And then the second one was slightly different, but it was for outline permission for the erection of 6 dwellings and the formation of an access road in 9 Main Road in Highbridge, West Huntsville. And again, it was refused on the grounds of being in the countryside, unsustainable location, but also again, this one actually was in flood zone 3, where and they hadn't met the requisite tests for demonstrating that it could be safely developed. So again, written representations, we seem to be getting quite a lot of those, fewer appeals and inquiries. In fact, I understand that all the appeals and inquiries that we have at the moment are all within the east area of Somerset, but so none of the other 3 is nothing. Like, I don't know what you make of that, but anyway, thank you.
Thank you. There being no comments about that, that brings us to the end of the meeting, and I now declare the meeting closed, and thank you